Welcome to Tall Talk Times, a podcast by tall people.
For tall people.
I'm Letty Saunders.
And I'm Tom Garner.
Hi, Tom.
Hello, Letty. I forgot to say beautifully tall people.
Oh, you were doing so well.
I know. Just got carried away and left out one word.
Pretty important.
I know. That's because we are beautifully tall.
We are beautifully tall.
Now, I understand you want to chat to me about aircraft.
Well, not in a sort of I love aircraft kind of way.
No.
But I was speaking to you off air.
Yes.
About my eldest son and I flying out to Budapest, taking the train over to Vienna, and then flying back. There's a mini break and doing it on a budget. And
that sounds lovely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the train travel, but not so much the aeroplane.
Tell me why's that?
Well, Oscar is 6'6", and he's pretty muscly, and I'm 6'3", and I have very long legs. Where do I put them?
In a suitcase.
Oh, yeah. I'll just take them off, unscrew the legs.
Just unscrew them, put them on that conveyor belt thing.
Pick them up later. Hope I don't pick up the odd ones. Maybe somebody else's.
I'm sorry, I've gone down a surreal sidetrack. Back to reality. So it's basically you're saying legroom's tight.
Yeah. So they say that, you shouldn't be in the extra legroom seats if you have a disability.
Yeah.
You have to be able-bodied. So, yeah, I can swing that. But why do we have to pay extra? It
does seem discriminatory for something that we can't help. I mean, I know from my limited flight experience, I've had to pay for the emergency exit seats.
Yeah.
Simply because you can stretch out much easier that way. But at the same, it's not good. My worst flight ever was, believe it or not, Ryanair. Who knew?
Really?
Yeah, and everyone's that's notorious. Everyone's fitting there, But for a tall man like me, it's just I wedged myself in there like a sardine, and couldn't wait for the flight to be over.
It's pretty dangerous, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
Oh yeah. In an emergency, I mean, I'd be stuffed.
But it's also not good for your blood flow, is it?
No. You can wear those decompression socks that can help with the blood flow.
I don't wear decompression stockings.
Okay, well,
no, okay.
But I'm just saying. I mean, obviously you don't wear them, but for listeners, they are an option if you want to wear them. Decompression socks.
Yeah, actually, it's a good idea.
Yeah, but I know what you mean about having to pay extra for this leg room. I don't know. Are there tricks tricks you can do? Can you persuade flight attendants? I mean, the seats on planes are notoriously cramped. I think even for average sized people.
Many years ago, I took a flight over to Turkey, and I couldn't physically sit. I mean, my thigh bone is longer than the gap in the seat. I couldn't sit down.
Oh, wow. God.
So the air hostess said, come with me. And we went to the back. And I thought she was taking me to a chair, one of the air hostess chairs I could sit on. No. She stood me next to the loudspeaker and said, hello, is there anyone here that would like to give up their extra legroom seat for a freakishly tall woman?
No.
Yeah.
She said that?
Yeah.
How did you respond? That's awful.
I went bright red and died on the spot.
Oh, thank goodness you're still here. You didn't die literally.
No, it was so painful. It was excruciating. I was trying so hard.
Did she even know what she was? Did she...
Freakishly tall woman.
Did she reflect afterwards, or did it just bypass her completely what she'd done?
One guy got up straight away, and he looked at me and he said, I am so sorry, and gave me his chair.
Oh, good, well, good for him.
That's a gent.
Yeah, of course. What does she do?
Well, she's not a lady.
Well, no, but do you remember what her response was to... Did you call her out?
She carried on with the job.
Oh, yeah.
But you see, that's why we need to reach people who are tall and people who aren't tall. That kind of behaviour isn't acceptable.
No, and I think often when people say those sort of things, often they would say, it was just a figure of speech or it was just a joke. But the trouble is, it's not a joke to the people who are on the receiving end of it. And it's for something that we can't help. This wouldn't be the same if you were the other height extreme. It might be, but it wouldn't be if people, of a different skin colour or ethnicity. Because that would be considered bad, obviously. But for some reason, when you're really tall... people think, there's a free pass to say what you like. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is weird. So I'm going to going to pay for that extra legroom so I don't have to be embarrassed.
Yeah, but it's a shame that we have to pay for the extra leg.
Yeah, not everybody can afford it either.
No.
It's not inclusive.
And how long was your flight to Turkey?
I don't know now.
Because that sounds to me like quite a long flight.
A good couple of hours.
I was lucky in that my flight on Ryanair, the really bad one, it was only to Dublin from Birmingham, so it was an hour if that. So as soon as I was up, it was over. If that makes sense.
Sure.
But I do remember just the extreme discomfort, and I haven't flown Ryanair since. It's the only time I've ever flown with that airline. And I wouldn't do it again, particularly not a longer haul flight to continental Europe, certainly.
No, I took my sons, Oscar and Merlin, over to France last summer. We did all the World War I and World War II sites, went up to Bruges first, Ypres, all the rest of it. It was fantastic, obviously. We did Chablis as well, and Calvados.
Sounds delightful.
The Champagne region.
Yeah,
interspersed for mother. But we went on the ferry.
Ah, clever.
Well, yeah, great big old disco and the three of us. Loads of room, and it was very reasonable. It was laborious driving, but it was an awful lot of fun. So I think, anything sort of France, Germany. I've got friends that have driven over to Italy before.
So if in doubt, listeners, get the ferry.
and drive.
Yeah.
Extra leg room.
I think this is something we'll have to look into further. So if anyone's listening out there and wants to talk about their experiences of flying as a tool person, or any tips that can help, then we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Make a post on the Facebook group, Tool Talk Times Facebook group, or come and speak to us at one of our many events. For we are also on Meetup.
Indeed we are, yes, it's getting very popular. So, Letty, as episode 8 progresses, shall we tell people what we're going to be talking about? So, shall we talk about what's going to happen coming up in this episode?
Giants of history.
Yes, Giants of history, and followed by an interview.
Yeah, an interview with a remarkable young man, James McAlpine, 7'2".
That is remarkable.
He's brilliant. Yeah. He is confident, and he's got lots of top tips for us. So we will look forward to listening.
That'd be fantastic. Later. Yes, but first, before we talk to James, it's that time again.
Giants of history. Who is it going to be? Because you said something about a fireside chat.
Oh yes. So I suggest that listeners gather round for a fireside chat, because who we're going to be talking about is an American figure, a lady, a first lady, no less. And she is Eleanor Roosevelt.
Oh, wow.
So she is the wife of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was famous for fireside radio chats.
So that's where the reference goes.
Exactly. So it's an obscure reference.
Very intelligent woman, I think.
Very, very intelligent. So we're going to delve into her history right now. So Eleanor is born in New York in 1884. She's the longest-serving First Lady of the United States. She served throughout her husband Franklin's unprecedented 4 terms of office during 1933 to 45. It's doubtful that will ever be topped, because in the 50s, there was a new amendment brought in whereby presidents can only serve for 2 terms.
Okay.
So, she will always be the longest-serving...
First Lady.
Yeah, I suspect. Eleanor and Franklin were actually 5th cousins once removed. And so Eleanor's maiden name was actually Roosevelt.
Oh, strange.
It's very strange. She was also a niece of Theodore Roosevelt, who was the president of the United States during 1901 to 09. So she comes from a very privileged background in American politics. But she didn't have it easy, and the height comes into this. So both her parents died before she was 10.
Oh.
And she was partially raised by her grandmother. And she later wrote about her childhood, "I was very tall, very thin, and very shy."
Oh.
Which I can just...
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Saying it out loud, I can sort of read the underlying sadness there. Yeah. And what her grandmother did, she was a very kind grandmother, but she sent her to England to be educated as a teenager. And if you listen to interviews with her on YouTube, she's actually got an English accent.
Was she sent here for finishing?
I guess so. And it's a peculiarly upper class English accent. You'd probably call it mid-Atlantic these days, but she twinges towards the English more than the American, I would say. And while she's in England, her headmistress taught her to think for herself.
Good.
and persuaded her to be emotionally open. And bear in mind, this is in the early 20th century. It's quite forward thinking.
Yes.
As part of that, her headmistress helped her to pick new clothes that looked better on her tall body.
That's helpful.
Very, very helpful.
Tall stylist.
Yes, I mean, yes.
I could do with one of those.
Indeed, yes. So, she grew to be 5'11", did Eleanor Roosevelt. So I think along with Michelle Obama and maybe one other, she's the tallest first lady in US history as well. But unfortunately, as a teenager, she was known as in their words, the ugly duckling of the family.
Oh, that's horrid.
Which is horrible. But aged just 14, she showed her strength because she wrote, "No matter how plain a woman may be, if truth and loyalty are stamped upon her face, all will be attracted to her."
That's beautiful.
Which is marvellous. And clearly she was not considered unattractive by Franklin. And Franklin was attracted to her because she had a tall, slim figure. And so they married in 1905 and they had 6 children.
Very happy together.
Very, very well. They had a complicated relationship, but that's not for the purposes of this podcast. But it was Eleanor who persuaded him to go into politics. And Franklin fell very ill with polio in the 1920s, and he couldn't walk. But she persuaded him to carry on, and she'd also give speeches on his behalf. When he became before he became president, he was the governor of New York. So this was Eleanor's first lady role, so to speak.
Yeah.
During this time, there's a reference to her height by a lady called Frances Perkins, and it's clear that Eleanor was quite modest about her appearance. So Frances wrote, "Eleanor thought it odd that a great tall woman like herself, who towered over everybody in Grand Central Station in New York, would be recognised when she ran for a train and that they would hold the train for her." So basically, she's kind of like, she's not expecting people to treat her any differently. And yet she stands out clearly amongst the crowd. So I think, but, clearly her height makes her stand out in a positive way. So when she becomes the first lady of the entire country, she reshapes and redefines what a first lady should be, mainly because she was very outspoken. And I found some facts what she did. She was the first lady to hold regular press conferences. She wrote newspaper columns but on her own. She hosted a weekly radio show, just like
podcast,
just like ours. And she advocated for the civil rights of African Americans.
Excellent.
As well as Asian Americans and World War II refugees. And she was known for her charm with people all over the country, and her height would come in handy. So once she met with African American workers in a factory, and one witness wrote, "I'll never forget that sight. Mrs. Roosevelt, tall, lovely, gracious, shaking each work-hardened hand and bending her head to catch what each man said."
Tall, lovely, gracious.
Beautifully tall.
Beautifully tall.
Beautifully tall. And interestingly, that little quote about bending her head to catch, so clearly her height is a bit of she has to accommodate.
So we can hear.
Yeah, it's quite something. And she had a wonderful life, actually, after her husband died in 1945. So she's no longer the first lady, but she continued in politics, and she pressed the United States to join and support the fledgling United Nations. And in the process, she became its first UN ambassador for the United States. She also served as the first chair of the UN Commission on Human Rights, and she oversaw the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So she's clearly a really good, fantastic woman. And she carried her career on for decades. When John F. Kennedy became president, she chaired his administration's, this is a mouthful, Presidential Commission on the Status of Women.
She was a really intelligent woman.
Extremely intelligent. And so by the time she died in 1962, the New York Times called her the object of almost universal respect, and she is now regarded as America's greatest first lady. But I think her height helped her enormously in her role. She was known to carry herself very well. She had excellent posture. Because of that school that she went to, she was taught to have excellent poise.
Well, you have books on your head and you have to be sort of sit properly. And
yes, you have experience of this.
We'll move on.
Okay.
My finishing was...
But I'll finish on a quote that from 1953 regarding her height. So this is to do with her height and her posture. She visited Florida, and the Miami Daily News reported her as follows: Eleanor Roosevelt's stately height and broad shoulders are always a surprise to those seeing her for the first time. So I think what that means is that she will walk into a room and people are like, are instantly charmed by, like, oh wow, who is this woman?
But obviously you can't hide the height.
Well, no, but
she owned it.
She completely owned it.
Yeah.
And people remembered her all the more for it. And now she's got this, I'm not saying her height's all to do with her current reputation, but I think the way she carried herself.
Presence.
Yes, definitely. It's part of her charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, fantastic lady. I'm so glad that I found out.
I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased that you found a female giant of history, someone that we can all, I say, look up to. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's wonderful. I'm going to actually read into her a little bit more to see if there's any decent books on her.
Well, clearly she's our podcast predecessor.
Yeah. Because the importance of connecting with people.
Yes.
So be it in politics or within a community group like ours.
Exactly. She was ahead of her time being that inclusive. I mean, clearly reaching out to African American and other minority communities within the United States.
Yeah.
At a time when things were so bad in that regard.
Yeah,
I think
explosive.
That's quite inspirational. And and of course we're all for inclusivity here as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So no, fantastic. There you go. True
Tom,
giant of history.
You've done really well with that. Thank you, Tom Garner, for the giants of history.
No problem.
And Eleanor Roosevelt.
Thank you, Eleanor. So, away from the United States, we're going to come a little bit closer to home. Well, it's time for our interview this week.
Yeah. James normally resides in Scotland.
Yes.
But he was down in London, so we caught up with him and gave us a wonderful interview.
Yes.
And here is our interview with James McAlpine. Welcome, James McAlpine, to Tool Talk Times podcast. Hi, James.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. You've met Tom, haven't you, my co-host?
Yes, we've met, James. It's good to talk to you again.
And you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to be on here.
Oh, no, thank you for coming. So, I guess because this is a podcast, James, my first question is, and I hope this doesn't sound rude to ask you, but for our listeners, would you mind telling us how your height?
So I'm currently standing at 7'2".
7'2". Now, that is, you are more than welcome in our group, that's for sure.
Yes.
And James, have you finished growing?
Yes, I have. I've actually just had it confirmed by a professional consultant person that I have indeed stopped growing.
Oh, that's great. How do you feel about that, having stopped growing? Are you pleased that you've stopped at 7'2", or did you want to go on a bit more?
Very, very, yes. Very pleased.
So, James, I was wondering, for our listeners, could you just tell us a bit about your background, your age, and growing up, when did you notice that you were taller than most people?
Yes, so I've really just noticed when I'm taller than most people when I was around 11 years old, I will say, because I've always been taller than all my peers in class growing up at primary school and secondary school. But it was when I first went to college at the age of 18 where I certainly realised that there was a mighty big deal about being taller than everyone else. And that's when I recognised I was considerably tall.
In what sense did that realisation at 18 manifest itself? Were people more vocal about you being tall?
Very much so, yes.
And how? Just if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I'm 20.
20, I see. So in a way, this is all relatively new to you.
Very much so. But I come from a family of tall people, so all my family members are over 6 foot, apart from my aunties.
Yeah. And did you? Remember when I talked to you last? Did you grow up in Scotland?
Yes, I did. Yes, in Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh, right? So it's I'm presuming when you go down to England, is there a difference between how the English treats tall people as opposed to Scottish people?
I would say, I mean, I can never say they treat me differently, but I would say anywhere I go, I face people talking to me about it and everything.
Yes. So my next question is, so as a tall person myself, I've had a lot of comments about my height, both positive and negative. And I was wondering what your experiences as a 7'2" man might have been.
Well, I've had both negative and positive comments made about my height. I would say there's some that are really negative, but then there's some that are really sort of people admiring me for my height, like saying, "Oh, well, you're so tall. I wish I was your height," and what have you.
And if people are, say, negative about it, how are you able to deal with it in a positive way? Because you're a very positive, chirpy person. And I was wondering what your methods are, because sometimes I'm quite grumpy about it if people are negative towards
James,
me.
He really is.
Well, it depends. It depends on how negative they are. So if they're extreme about it, I either will just ignore them, or just tell them to move on. And then yeah.
That's fair enough.
Ignoring is takes a lot of self-discipline to ignore.
It does take a lot of self-discipline, and it's self-discipline that I sometimes don't have.
Yeah, James is 20 and he's already there, Tom.
So basically, James, we've got a lot, and we're older than you. We have a lot to learn from you, basically, in how to handle things.
I think it's because I've had it all my life that I've just got so used to it now in the past 3 years or so that I'm now so used to it, I'll just learn to move on and walk on past them.
Yeah, of course. And in other aspects of being a very tall man, have you encountered things to do? What messages would you have for other people like yourself about, say, having a positive mindset? It can be down to things like mental or physical health, friends and family, stuff like that.
Well, I would just say to be positive about your height, because there's nothing that you could really do about your height. And I've had to learn to deal with that. And as hard as it is, I've just had to embrace it. And I am the person I am. And that's how it's going to be.
James, both you and your mother, I've met your lovely mother, are beautifully tall. And for you coming on here to talk to us about your very tall, beautifully tall self is great, because there are people at home that don't interact with other people. And that's what Tall Talk Times is all about, is about trying to get people talking to each other and addressing tall, very tall, in a very positive light. That's not to dismiss the fact that there does come some negativity with being tall, but we can't do anything about our height, as you just said. You know, it's something that we can't do anything about physically, can we?
No, not at all.
So I know that you've just graduated from agriculture college. Does your height come in useful for that kind of work?
Well, not really, because it involves a lot of bending over and standing up on my feet. And for me, standing on my feet for really long periods of time gets quite tiresome, and it can cause slight pain in my back and in my legs. So it was quite strenuous work. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and all the pain and something I've just got to grin and bear it, really, because I'm going to have it.
James, have you heard about the study that the University of Bath are doing on establishing the metabolic and nutritional requirements of individuals with extreme body morphology? Well, it's on the Tall Talk Times Facebook group, but we have the Professor James Betts, who we've interviewed as well, another James, another wonderful James. So really that may be something that you'd be interested in, but you were mentioning about to me on the telephone the other day when we had a chat about the nutritional requirements of being very tall, how you, and like your friend, my son Oscar, both eat quite a lot of food because you need to, because you have a larger frame.
Well, for me, really, I just have because I'm so tall, I've got an incredibly high metabolism rate. Okay. So basically, if I had a big meal, I would then burn off all that food within the next hour or so after eating.
Okay, so there's quite a lot of maintenance for someone who is very tall.
Yeah, I mean, I eat an awful lot myself.
Yeah, you're taller than me. I'm very short at 6'3" compared to you two beautifully tall chaps.
That's very true. Very true. Yes.
Thank you very much.
So, James, can you tell me, do you have problems with clothing?
Well, no, not in recent years, not really, because I found a lot of my clothing off a website called tootall.com. A lot of the listeners may have heard of it.
Yes.
It's this website, and all the clothes are suitable for all tall people. I'm not sure what's the minimum height on it, but it goes up to way above 7 foot, and it is fantastic because that's where I get all my trousers from, my jeans from.
And it's quite modern as well.
Shirts from there.
Yeah. So it fits because you're a young man and because you're tall, you want to be able to get clothing that isn't old-fashioned as well, don't you? You want to get something stylish.
Absolutely. Well, I quite like a range of clothing. So besides too tall, for my footwear, I've recently discovered a company called Chatham, and they do shoes going up to a size 15. So that's perfect for me because that's my shoe size.
That's great, James. I'm really pleased that there's all these clothing outlets out there now, because I remember growing up. I'm 36 now, but I remember growing up. Finding trousers for me in particular was very difficult, and there were a few shops, but there wasn't much to go on. So I'm really glad that clearly it's expanded for those of us who are of a taller persuasion, shall we say?
Yes, no, definitely. I think it has come a long way.
And you have something that fits, and shoes as well, and that's good. And see, I don't think a lot of average height people even realise these challenges that we have. I mean, I'm 6'3". I can probably just about squeeze an outfit in here or there from an average height range. However, you two chaps are very beautifully tall. So
thank you.
So what we need to hear about it are all the brands, really, all the clothing brands. And on Tall Talk Times, we do have a clothing section on there that people talk about all their great outfits that they have and the fit that they have, because just because you're tall doesn't mean to say that you're super large.
No, certainly not.
And you're slim, as is Tom.
Yes.
So you need something that's in proportion for your body so you can feel comfortable and confident when you go out.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that particularly, I think often, because I'm tall and slim like James is, and I think people who make clothes for tall men assume that we're as wide as we are tall, and they will make almost very large square items of clothing.
Yeah, I mean, there are those. I mean, it's very easy I've done it myself. It's very easy to put weight on a larger frame.
Yes.
It's very easy. So I'm quite mindful about my diet now, but yeah, there are chaps out there who are as wide as they are tall.
Yeah.
But for those like you and James, you need to have things in proportion.
What I've really enjoyed is your positivity about your height, because I've certainly struggled with it myself over the years, but to hear it from a guy who's taller than me and is just so relaxed and cool about it.
Oh, he's very cool.
It's very cool. It's quite inspiring to hear. So we really appreciate you taking the time out to chat to us.
You're very welcome. No, thank you.
And James, you see, he's out clubbing tonight.
Oh yes,
yeah.
which you won't find me doing.
Really?
No, I can't stand clubbing. No.
But, you get extra attention because you are very tall. But James, when you go out clubbing, you've told me a couple of things before what happened. Do you want to share that with the listeners?
So when people ask me at the bar, in pubs and clubs, how tall I am, I just say to them, buy me a pint and I'll tell you.
That's so good.
What a legend. What an
absolute legend. Oh, well done, James.
Oh, thank you very much.
Cheers,
so
James.
Carry on, tell us, because there is more. I know
there's more.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So you all have a lot of photographs, don't you, taken?
Oh, yes. It seems I'm sort of a somewhat celebrity if I walk into any sort of pub or nightclub.
Well, you should charge for photographs, James. Not just get pints. Charge money. I would.
Get a chaser.
Yeah. Because it's funny. I often say that being very tall is like being a celebrity, but without the pay. So I think if people are asking you for photographs, you're within your rights.
Well, it depends on how they ask me the question. If they're going to be polite about it, then sure, I'll have a photo with them, no problem. But if they're rude about it, then obviously won't want to have a picture with them at all.
Well, no, quite. Or make the rude ones get out their wallets. That'll that'll stop them.
Yes, it's a pint and a chaser for me and all of my average height friends.
Yeah.
What do you think the best thing about being tall is for you?
Getting free pints.
That's brilliant.
Oh, what a guy.
Yeah, absolute legend. James, thank you ever so much for joining us today, because
No, thank you.
if you at 7'2" can be just so inspiring and confident, then you really are a role model for everyone, not just the younger ones coming through who wake up every morning and they've grown another inch and, when am I going to stop growing? All of those different things that they have to address. But for some of the older ones like Tom, who probably could do with a little bit of your confidence.
I probably could, yes. But it's good to know that there's someone taller than me that just thinks naturally, it's fine, it's all good.
Yeah, but it is fine.
Yeah.
It is fine. James, isn't it?
It's absolutely fine. It's what's normal to us, which is fine.
Exactly.
James McAlpine, you are beautifully tall, and thank you for joining us on Tall Talk Times podcast.
Cheers, James. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, Letty, that was a great interview with James. What do you think?
I think it's brilliant how he can get a beer. When people ask him how tall he is, buy me a beer and I'll tell you.
Buy me a beer.
Buy me a pint.
It's quite fantastic. I really think he should charge as well, just to see what would happen.
He's dealt with it so positively, though.
Yeah, and it'd be so easy. It can't be easy being that tall, I suspect. But he deals with it with a lot of grace.
Yeah, he is a young gentleman.
Yeah,
and his mother should be very proud.
No, indeed, yes.
Because there are other very tall people out there that don't connect.
No.
So hearing James or us later on, or looking at the Facebook group Tall Talk Times, and or maybe even the meetup and coming out to meet us in person if you feel that you would like to. So you're with your tall tribe, and nobody is excessively tall.
No.
Because we're all of varying heights. So
Yeah.
5'10" is our shortest.
And 6'2", and that's for women, and it's 6'2" for men is the shortest.
Yeah, but then we go all the way up. I think we about 6'8", I reckon that we hit. But with James, 7'2". But he's very inspiring for such a young man to have such wisdom about ignoring the nasty people.
Yeah.
And giving positive retorts.
I do. I look back. He's only very young. I look back to how I was, say, 15 or 16 years ago at his age, and I wouldn't have dreamt of coming on a podcast like this. I would have been so self-conscious. I would have felt like so exposed.
Yeah.
I certainly did not feel positive about it. That's for sure. If anyone asked me, I would have gone, "Nah, you don't want this." There's part of me that still thinks that. It's funny how everyone's attitude is slightly different, but listening to James, there's part of me thinks I wish I'd had that more self-assuredness and relax and ease with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so basically, if you're a young person who's very tall, just remember that you are beautifully tall and don't let other people get you down.
And there are other people out there like you. You're not alone.
No, exactly. You're really not alone.
Please don't be lonely. Reach out. And if not, to your family, if you fancy joining some chatter up on the Facebook group, lots of people do.
Yeah.
And everyone's welcome within that height range.
Within the height range. Sorry for those below it.
Well, no, we have to have our place where we feel safe, where we can hang.
Exactly.
I've had to turn a couple of people away from the events that we run because they didn't meet the height requirement.
Yeah.
And I can remember people like, do you turn someone away? I said, yeah, because they're not tall enough. And our tall tribe, they need to feel comfortable that, we're not there as a spectacle. Yeah. We're there to just chill in each other's company.
Exactly. There needs to be a place of belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such fun as well. Everyone's so pleased to see each other.
Oh yes, I've had a great time.
Instead of saying like I'm shorter than you. And it's everyone, no, I'm taller than you. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Take your shoes off.
Or you can just talk on the level, which is a rare thing for people our height.
Eye to eye contact.
Yeah, it's quite. Obviously you have eye to eye contact when you're sitting down, but actually having a chat, having a drink, and talking to someone on the level, standing up, it doesn't sound much, but to a very tall person, it actually means a lot.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's lovely to see everyone's confidence and just blossom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that just thrills me. People say, why do you volunteer? Why do you do this? Well, I do it for that.
Exactly.
And I get so much out of it. And as do you, Tom?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think, as I've said in the previous episode, I think if there had been a group like this when I was growing up as a younger man, it would have been great for me. I just didn't know about any.
Empowering.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what James McAlpine has brought with his interview.
Yeah, so thank you very much, James, for your contribution.
Thanks, James. And thank you, listeners, for bearing with us for another podcast. Any top tips, any recommendations or some feedback, please get in touch.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
And we're also looking for more people to interview if you have a particular tool salon you'd like to talk about.
Exactly. So for next time, tune in for more Giants of History, more tool chat, and other fun things besides.
And please keep checking out the events that are on the Tool Talk Times Facebook group. They're coming up all the time. And we're having an awful lot of fun, and you can be part of it. So thank you again from us at Tool Talk Times.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.